Hi, I'm Representative John Ray Clemens. Thank you all for coming to our weekly press conference of the joint Senate and House Democratic caucuses. Well, we've survived the first week of legislative session. Unfortunately, what we continue to see is a failure by this supermajority and this administration to focus on the issues that really matter to Tennessee families. We came here ready to work this legislative session on to improve our public education systems, really take a big step forward in modernizing our transportation infrastructure system, create better, higher paying jobs and benefits for Tennessee families, and really focus on all these issues that people actually care about. And then they're actually talking about at the dinner tables. And unfortunately, as you know, those issues haven't been discussed. They haven't even been raised yet this year in this legislature. We continue to see a lot of concerning legislation. We continue to see attacks on local governments, and it's just really unfortunate. So we are going to cover a couple of topics this week. First, we're going to kick off with Leader Harold Love from Nashville and Senator Campbell. We're going to be talking about the Metro Council bill, and then my leader, Karen Camper, will briefly discuss the letter that we sent in support of the Tennessee Department of Veteran Services request for additional $5 million to this governor in his proposed budget. And so they'll start off with those issues, and then we'll move from there. So, Leader Love.
Good morning. As many of you all know, the bill proposed to reduce the size of Metro Council to 20 from 40 passed out of subcommittee this week and is headed to full committee. And I'm, like so many, concerned about what this will do for the city's representation. I think my concerns are deep-rooted personal issues because my father served in the old Nashville City Council. At that time, it was just him, Ruby, and Lillard, the first three blacks in the city council. When the city was consolidated with Metro government and the size increased to 40, there was a promise that we'd have more black representation, which is where we get this notion about the council at large positions. And of course, the black representation did not increase that much in the new Metropolitan Council. So for me, there are some deep historical ties to the size of the Metro Council when it comes to minority and black representation. I hope our colleagues will understand that and be willing to go into some conversations about what we could do to mediate the reduction of representation in our city. As the city goes forth and it grows, we certainly want to make sure that people are represented and that the lines aren't drawn in such an odd manner that you break up communities and break up those neighborhoods that are so cohesive now. So I hope that we can reach some agreement next week before the bill gets to full committee, and hopefully we'll have supporters on the other side of the aisle that will realize that this is really going to impact Nashville tremendously as we go forward in the future. Thank you.
I'd like to speak about the same thing today. I know everyone in the legislature, on the council, and in our state wants what's best for Tennessee. And we all know that Nashville is an important economic engine for our state. As we would with all our other great cities, we will be in big trouble if if Nashville doesn't do well. And at some point, I would suggest probably now would be a good time that we stop fighting with each other and taking offense and seeking retribution and work hard to make a life that's better for Tennesseans. That is what we are elected to do. And that's what everybody in our state wants us to do. We have a lot of work to do, and issues that may not grab headlines or may not poll well, like inflation, education, infrastructure. We have a lot of work to do on things like that. And we have children sleeping on office floors, and half of Tennesseans can't afford housing, health coverage, or child care. But instead of solving real problems, the controlling party spends a lot of time inventing ways to punish Nashville. We were elected to work together for the good of all Tennesseans. Let's cease this petty race to the bottom before we crash the entire state economy.
Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the $5 million additional funds we asked the governor for in the budget for veteran services. As a veteran myself, I reflected on when the president and Congress passed the PACT Act. I reflected on my own time in the military service. And I remember serving in Germany, being deployed, being in these facilities that were asbestos filled, all type of war munitions, unexploded and things like that. I remember that. I remember being deployed in places and where you were on these bases where you had chemicals in soils, but mission was first. You're there to accomplish the mission and to protect what this country says it stands for globally. And you do it for the love of the country. You do it for those reasons that you want to be able to fight for your country and the things that we believe in. So when you come back and you become this veteran, you have this feeling or this deep belief that you can reasonably expect that your country is going to honor you for you honoring your country. That this country is going to be true to the things they say they will do for you as a returning veteran. And so we have an opportunity with this PACT Act to address some of these issues that a lot of veterans and their families are dealing with, living on some bases and serving abroad and the things that we've had to deal with. And I don't think $5 million is too much to ask. I think the veterans deserve it. And I'm not saying that he won't, but we're encouraging him as a caucus to do it. And we will stand with him if he makes that step to show our veterans we do care for their service. Not just me, Karen Camper, but every veteran in this state who sometimes feel like they may be a political football, but that's not what this is about. It's really not. And so I think that we need to make that extra investment. We have the funds to do it, and I think the veterans deserve it. And so our caucus took bold action to, pen the letter and send it in support of that ask. And we're, we're hopeful that he will, but we'll also hold his feet to the fire if he don't.
And I would just like to follow up on that letter, because it's a very important issue, and thanks to Leader Camper for her, not only her service to the country, but her leadership on this. And we have the benefit of having the wisdom and experience of multiple veterans within the House Democratic Caucus who led on this effort as well. Representative Ronnie Glenn of Clarksville, Representative Dwayne Thompson, Shelby County, Representative Bill Beck, and Representative Antonio Parkinson all serve our country. And I apologize, the senators, I'm not sure who the veterans are on the Senate caucus, but this is an important issue, and that was ultimately made possible. This is a good problem to have. When you have over 50% more people seeking out to the state for assistance and guidance with veterans benefits, that is a direct result of the PACT Act, thanks to President Joe Biden's leadership and recognizing the value of veterans and the service that they provided to this country for all of our benefit, to allow us to be here at the state level and all of our families to live in peace. So that was a very important thing. And again, that was an example of this caucus reaching across the aisle in agreement with the department of this administration, asking this governor to do the right thing. The general and the commissioner of the Department of Veteran Services is the one who requested that dollars. We're simply agreeing with him and asking the governor to do the right thing by our veterans and make sure that they get the assistance they need. Also this week, just to wrap up, one of the big focuses that we want to work on in this session is access to health care, all kinds of health care. Reproductive health care obviously has come under attack in this state. We have the most restrictive health care law in the country with regard to reproductive health. And so earlier this week, I don't know if we could do any more Senator Lamar could do any better of a job than she did when we rolled out that bill. But at this time, I hand it over to Senator Lamar to discuss healthcare access and the reproductive healthcare bill that we introduced.
Thank you, Chair Clement. This week, we introduced the Fundamental Rights to Healthcare Act, which is a bill that reestablishes abortion access to Tennesseans across the state. What we do know is Tennessee has one of the highest maternal infant mortality rates in this country, where we could expect an increase in maternal and infant deaths if we continue to keep abortion illegal in this state. We have the most egregious and extreme abortion law in the country with 0 exceptions. What we're asking is our Republican colleagues put their misguided partisan politics aside and do the right thing for women's health care. We are asking them for their bravery to reinstate abortion access in this state and ensure that women can take advantage of this vital health care method. Now, we know it's going to be an uphill battle, but we as a Senate and House Democratic caucuses are united in our front to reestablish health care access for all women and families across the state of Tennessee. We have seen some other exception bills come out this week. As of right now, we saw a bill come out from Senator Hale, which establishes that police reports are required. It gives a very limited timeline on when a person is able to take advantage of an abortion. As of right now, if the Republicans need our help to expand that law, right now they don't have our votes because this law is too extreme and it doesn't give women the protection when it comes to rape and incest. So again, we are asking for their support for our particular piece of legislation. The Judiciary Committee in the Senate is going to hear all abortion bills on February 28th. So you can expect us to present our bill on February 28th with all the other abortion bills that will be heard in this state. But again, we're asking our supermajority colleagues to join us and put partisan politics aside and give women this vital health care access that we so desperately need.
Senator Lamar, that bill that you mentioned from Senator Hale sounds like it's a mandatory 3-year sentence for false reporting of rape to get an abortion. Some people have worried that that might put a chill on the reporting of rape. Do you have any thoughts on that bill in particular?
As of right now, I think that bill totally misses what women need in regards to safely protecting themselves and being able to go and report rape. It's so interesting. TBI came out this year and said it takes between 39 weeks and 42 weeks to get a rape kit tested. That means you'll have that baby before your rape kit is even tested. So what we need to do is allow women the freedom and the protection to go to claim rape or end a pregnancy if they are a victim of rape without the fear that they're going to jail or the fear of having to let the police department know every bit of way when they can't even test their rape kits in an adequate amount of time. So it's misguided. What I'm hoping is that bill can be amended. It can take the police exceptions out and take away the criminality in this bill. Abortion access is not about criminalizing people. It's about giving rape victims, women, and other families the vital health care access that they absolutely need.
Is there any, you said 39 weeks, I believe you said, to test the rape kits?
On average, a rape kit, it takes between 39 weeks to 42 weeks, and that was something that was given out by TBI themselves.
Is there any, I'm not sure, I haven't seen the legislation, but is there any legislation to try to help them with that or reduce that amount?
Well, I have a piece of legislation that requires rape kits to be tested within 30 days. What we're hoping is that the state will approve the funding that they need to hire the appropriate scientists and retain them to be able to test these rape kits in the amount of time that I'm suggesting. But as of right now, if we support this all access bill that all of our colleagues are standing behind, then women will be able to access abortion services if they are victims of rape or incest or if their life or health is in jeopardy.
And then there's the other bill that tries to give the life expectancy or to protect the mother of life. Do you think that's a good one, or?
If it is going to give women the option to choose themselves, that's something that our caucuses are willing to discuss and willing to work across the aisle as we've been doing as legislators who sit in the minority. So we're always willing to entertain conversations where it's going to increase women's access to this vital healthcare service, but anything that puts criminality on women who are victims is something that we as a caucus just cannot support. Any more questions?
Any further issue?
Yeah. Tyree Nichols' funeral was yesterday. I understand a few of you, I think Reps Jones and Hardaway, maybe some others, filed some legislation about that. Is anybody willing to talk about their bills with regard to police reform?
Yeah, so I think we do have a slew of caucus bills that we're looking at. My team met with Campaign Zero. My team met with Campaign Zero earlier this week. They're the ones that proposed the initial We Can't Wait legislation, looking at ways that we can strengthen what's already going on in Tennessee, looking at ways that we can codify the actions of the Memphis Police Department that acted so swiftly to make sure that those former officers were fired. And we have not seen that in other instances of police brutality. I think that was the difference. Ben Crump said that Memphis should be the blueprint for how other cities and police departments lead. We're gonna try and codify some of that. What happened to Tyree Nichols was unacceptable. No parts of what happened to him should have happened. And we have to make sure that we as a state are committed legislatively to making sure there's no other Tyree Nichols in this state. And I think, and they always say Tennessee's leading. Well, this is an actual way that Tennessee can lead and make a difference. And it's also important to note a lot of these policies that need to be changed are local. And so we're working with the Memphis City Council as well. We've connected them with Campaign Zero as well to try and facilitate what we can do on a state level and what they can do on a city level.
Have your Republican colleagues shown any openness to this conversation?
They've certainly shown empathy and outrage, and so I hope to turn that into a positive movement. If you recall, a lot of the A Can't Wait pieces were passed by Mike Bell, who was a Republican, who's chair of judiciary. And so I do think that this is a bipartisan issue. It really doesn't see blue or red or anything else. It's something that we owe to our people across the state to protect.
Representative Bo Mitchell, I had a question about the amendment that you had on the gender affirming, the cosmetic one. Is that an issue that you would look to pursue in the future, like minors getting cosmetic surgery?
No, I'm gonna bring that amendment every step of the way along this, because we're being told that bill is being brought forth to protect children from having surgery under the age of 18, and to protect those children for making lifetime decisions. Well, you know, if it's truly about protecting children, then we ought to protect those children from their parents who are allowing them to get nose jobs or breast implants for cosmetic reasons. So I'm just showing hypocrisy in that bill.
And on that very subject, you know, we all up here seek to look for the best in our colleagues, work with them, and we all try to, or we hope that they're coming from a place of love in whatever policy they introduce. But I think this is more about hate, unfortunately, and it's seriously concerning in a lot of ways. But yesterday, Senator Jeff Yarbrough did a masterful job discussing it from that perspective in the Senate committee. So, Senator Yarbrough, can you start to discuss this?
Look, I think we started down a dangerous path this week in this legislature when this group of politicians starts telling parents how they're supposed to be parents. They're telling people what it means to love their kids and what it doesn't mean. That we're supposed to make laws that apply to everyone and that everyone can live under. And when we start making life harder for people who are trying to raise parents in tough situations, it's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. And when it comes to this particular issue of trans kids, look, we know that there are trans kids who are kicked out of their house when they're not, before they're 18, which is unquestionably abuse and neglect. But we had a mother who talked about the ways she reached out to her child to prevent him from committing suicide, the work that she put in to keep him alive through age 18. And the fact that we're gonna label someone like that as an abuser in this state, it should be chilling to every parent. We actually have a significant problem with abuse and neglect in this state. There are hundreds of children that courts, judges have found adjudicated to be the victims of abuse and neglect who are sleeping on the floors of office buildings. And instead of dealing with that real issue, these people are out here trying to make a show of things. It's not motivated by trying to protect children, but trying to use children as political props in a culture war. And it's beneath the dignity of this body, and we shouldn't stand for it. There's an aspect of which is Groundhog's Day, and it feels like we are living the same old cultural wars over again in this General Assembly, despite the fact that the people of the state need us to focus on the real problems that are affecting them right now. I think it's time for us to get back to work on the real work that needs to get done.
And one more thing, I think the saddest thing that I've ever experienced in the Tennessee General Assembly was after that committee meeting, I go out into the hallway and there's a father of a child who was scheduled to testify, and he was scared to testify to defend his child because he was scared he would be the target of an investigation showing that he was abusing his child. So he had to remain silent and couldn't protect his child, speak up for his kid because he was scared of his government. That is just beyond sad. And that's what we're living in. We're living in that's a terror state. When you're making your people scared to speak up, that's a terror state.
It's tyranny.
Else have any questions about anything else?
Just real quick, Representative Clemens, yesterday you gaveled down for asking the new health commissioner about HIV funding. Just hoping that we could talk about, seems that the health commissioner was introduced to the health committees this past week, but wasn't allowed to actually talk about any decisions that he's made, particularly regarding the HIV funding.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. 2 days into his new job, the Commissioner of Health, who is charged with protecting the health of the public, the general public and Tennessee families, made a decision or was told to make a decision that directly threatened the public health and the lives of Tennesseans. And so of course, Senator Yarborough also on the Senate side, and I, the same on the House side, tried to take the opportunity while we have this gentleman in front of this body in a public forum and setting to fairly ask him questions. I think the decision that was made by this governor and his probably handed down to his health commissioner was unconscionable. Absolutely unconscionable. To arbitrarily cut off federal funding that is going to cost entities and organizations across this state millions of dollars, not just in that direct funding, I think to the tune of $9 million in that direct funding, but the other costs associated with that and the drug incentive, programs from which these entities benefit from is going to far exceed that $9 million, and it's going to directly threaten public health. So not being able to provide education, protection, treatment, services for HIV. And I've said this before, if you've ever had a loved one that has suffered from this terrible virus and watched them suffer and ultimately die, and to think that could be prevented through prevention or treatment, you're putting people's lives in jeopardy by withholding this money. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone else who hasn't experienced that, but I'm afraid more Tennesseans are going to experience that as a direct result of this governor's unconscionable decision. When he could have addressed his concern, what I think is his concern, I hate to speculate what's going on in their heads, it's a dark, scary place in there, But whatever's going on in his head, whatever he's trying to accomplish, probably could have been accomplished with a much narrower focus rather than a sledgehammer.
You said, you're trying to limit the reliance on federal funding. Couldn't help but notice the same week, they asked for $117 million for small businesses. Do you have any thoughts on whether or not that was a genuine concern of theirs, not relying on federal funding so much anymore?
Well, we all know that's a joke, right? I mean, 40% of our annual budget in the state of Tennessee comes from the federal government, I believe. You know, Governor Bill Lee has referred to federal assistance as economic meth within the last year, yet his own Department of Transportation just testified in a budget hearing that we weren't getting enough money from the Department of Transportation from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Now he's seeking funds to, you know, accomplish these other things. And of course, our entire congressional delegation and U.S. senators, they all voted against all of this. They voted against the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. They voted against the PACT Act to I think some of them. Yet, they're the first ones to show up for a ribbon cutting. They're the first ones to brag about a project getting funded. They're the first ones to talk about all the difference they're making in people's lives, but they're not doing the work. These people are playing a political game with people's lives, as Senator Yarbrough said. You know, you can't say one thing one day and do something the next, and that's where we find ourselves today. And they either need to say thank you to the federal government and thank you to President Biden for his leadership, and as well as the other bipartisan members of Congress who passed these funds to benefit Tennessee families, or they just need to walk away and own the fact that they're not doing anything to improve the quality of life of working Tennesseans. All right, thank y'all.
Guys.